Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Dina Julianti and my NPM 20020100795 and I'm from regular Nike BZM. And then here I want to explain about the material about English and intercultural communication subject by Mr. M. Arbain MPD. Okay, let's start the material. Okay, the first I will explain about teaching foreign language in an intercultural world. The first is introduction. The purpose of learning a foreign language is to learn to communicate in the target language, to learn the customs and traditions of the speech community, and to promote one's study and work. A person, from an ignorant individual to a social member, must learn the knowledge, skill, and conversation so as to adjust himself to the society and qualify himself as a social member. This process is known as the socialization of a man, and it goes throughout a man's life. This holds true not only to one's native language but also to his learning a foreign language is that language, as a social product, fully embodies the culture of its speech community and is closely related to the culture of the speak community. Intercultural communicating means communicating among people come from many and various cultures face to face. For foreign language educators, to develop the learner's intercultural communication competence is to know how to teach foreign culture. Culture teaching is in foreign language teaching is a question conducted by language teachers throughout all universities and colleges in the world. The second is language and culture. The relationship between language and culture. The relationship between language and culture is dynamic. Firstly, language is an important part of culture. It is the primary vehicle by which a culture transmits its beliefs, values, and norms. Secondly, language is influenced by culture. Language is one of the most important carriers of culture and reflects the latter. If there is no language, culture would not be known. On the one hand, culture is the basis and one of the most important attributes of language and exerts great influence on the latter. If there is no culture, language will be like water without a source or a tree without roots. B. The relationship between culture and foreign language teaching. In foreign language learning, linguistic transfer refers to the effect of one language, usually the native language, on the learning of another, usually the target language. This is also a common strategy employed by foreign language learners. They often use native language patterns or rules in learning target language, which results in errors or inappropriate forms in the target language. This is called negative transfer, also known as interference. Language is inextricably bound up with culture. Cultural values are both reflected by and carried through language. Accordingly, it is inevitable that the way of thinking and expressing influenced by the native culture will be unconsciously transferred to the target language during the intercultural communication, that is, the cultural transfer. As a matter of fact, the most difficult thing for the language learners to deal with in their study of the foreign language is not the linguistic forms of grammar but the cultural difference. In the process of cognition of the world, people always store the schemata into their brain. Schemata can be compared to an immersed system of files in one's brain, where you can classify and store your brain and individual knowledge of and experience. After receiving some new information, the brain will set up a new schema to store it or put it in an established schema of the same class. Cultural schema refers to the knowledge structure based on cultural knowledge. The teaching of cultural knowledge and the establishment of cultural schema will be of great help to the learner's linguistic comprehension and expression. Once needed, the cultural schema stored in one's brain will be used by the students to get rid on the abstraction and solve the problems resulting from cultural differences. Cultural schemata are of vital importance for many aspects of the foreign language learning. And three, communicative competence. Intercultural communication focuses on what occurs when the source and receiver are in different contexts or cultures. Becoming a competent intercultural communicator means being effective in communication with those of diverse cultures and groups. First, judgment refers to the ability to produce sentences which are grammatical. Second, judgment refers to the ability to produce sentences which are feasible or physiologically acceptable. And third, judgment refers to the ability to use correct forms of language in a specific sociocultural context. And fourth, judgment is about the occurrences of the linguistic forms. And communicative competence is the ability to achieve certain communicative ends by various possible linguistic or non-linguistic means. The communicative competence is far more than the grammatical competence of an ideal speaker, and it is highly complex ability. The acquisition of communicative competence in the mother tongue is a natural process of socialization, which has much to do with the whole social activities and social environment. For a native speaker, there also exist different degrees of communicative competence. As far as communicative competence in a foreign language is concerned, the training of it takes time and effort. The basic goal of learning a foreign language is to acquire the communicative competence, while the development and improvement of such competence is to some extent dependent of efficient and scientific teaching approach. Communicative approach takes the development of communicative competence as the main objective of foreign language teaching, with less focus on the correctness of linguistic structure but more on the getting truth of meanings, especially the speaker's abilities of interpretation, expression, and negotiation in communication. When we communicate, we use the language to accomplish some functions such as persuading and or protesting, which should be carried out within a social context. Communication is a process, and it is not enough for the learners to simply grasp the knowledge of language forms, grammar, and function. The learners must be able to use the language to negotiate meaning in communication and be able to use the language appropriate to a given social context. Communicative approach will fail without the solid foundation of enough knowledge of the language. Communicative approach is of great significance lies in the fact that it attaches more importance to the practical use of the foreign language rather than the structure of grammar of it. Okay, see you the next material. I'm sorry if I have a mistake. Thank you for the kind attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.